Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eaterberg, and today I'm bringing you an interview with Dana Koops, director and star of the short film La Bibliothèque, which will have its world premiere this weekend at ComicCon. Before I jump into the interview, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player so you can get all the newest episodes as soon as they are released. If you like the interview and want to hear more, please consider leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Dana Koops has been acting from a very young age and began producing her own films when she was in the 9th grade. Her 2019 short Driver's Ed won multiple awards, and her love of story and adventure enables versatility not only as an actress, but also as an engaging filmmaker. She joins me today to talk about her latest film, La Bibliothèque, which will have its world premiere at ComicCon on July 28th. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I want to start off by asking a little bit about the inspiration for this film. The concept of the conversation that you have in the film, and I'm trying not to give too much away for folks who haven't seen it yet, but it's a concept I don't think I've seen before done in this way. Where did you get that idea for the premise of the film?
Yeah, I guess I will try not to give spoilers, but my answer may be a little revealing. The idea first came to me when my mother actually came up to me and we were talking about a conversation she had just had with her best friend who had asked the question, wouldn't it be cool if, what if we could FaceTime heaven? And I was really intrigued by that concept, having just gone through this loss myself, and was thinking, about what my own answer to that would be, and kind of went on Google and just, looking up, what kind of came up for that concept. And I discovered in my research that after the 2011 tsunami in Japan, they had constructed this phone booth where people who had lost loved ones could go and pick up the phone, and, it's not connected to anything, but they could leave a message for the person that they had lost and kind of say what they maybe hadn't had the chance to say. And this was done again in 2020 for the anniversary of 9/11 in New York.
Okay.
So I was just really inspired by this concept, and they were called the Phones of the Wind. And so that was a huge inspiration for me in coming up with my film, which I feel like is essentially, if what would happen if the other person actually picked up scenario.
That's a really cool idea. I hadn't heard about those two things, but that's really neat to hear about that. Now, you mentioned a moment ago the loss that you experienced, and I believe in just doing a little bit of research on you before this, it was your brother that you unfortunately lost a little while ago. Tell me a little bit about your brother, if you don't mind. How much of your real life brother is in the film craft, and how much is based on kind of what you needed to put on the screen for the character it's in the film?
Yeah. My brother, Daniel Paul Koops, was a very creative, intelligent, very grounded and empathetic, fun person. And we were very close as siblings. He was an amazing brother and always super supportive. And he was really a true Renaissance man. He loved a variety of different interests, from playing the trumpet to composing. He composed most of the scores for my early films, actually.
Yeah, and, I've seen that.
Yeah, he, woodworking, etc. So, as much as as a writer, I probably should have fictionalized more. I really ended up just writing what I knew and really crafted. I didn't really craft anything for the screen. I just wrote pretty much who he actually was onto the page. He really loved gardening as well. So the fact that Carter is in a garden, spoiler alert in the film, and I have him gardening during some of the conversations was intentional because of that. I like to think that, where my brother ended up, he has a garden that he's tending. Chess was something that we really enjoyed playing together. That was one of our things. And so that was a huge motivation for that being, the activity that Carter and Chloe kind of enjoy in the film. Yeah, just stuff like that. We bantered like they do, he would tease me so it was all very much who he actually was and what our relationship was actually like. I didn't fictionalize much, besides the actual plot.
Sure,
talented person.
Although I'm sure you would love to make that an actuality,
Yes.
to have that connection still.
Yeah.
Now on the other side, obviously the character in the film is a stand-in for your brother, as Chloe is kind of a stand-in for you. Were there any aspects of your own kind of background of being in school and all of that, those experiences that you wanted to make sure you brought to the film, aside from the relationship with the brother?
Yeah, I think, I didn't include too much of my own story per se with, school and my situation, in that the relationship with her and the brother was really the key aspect of it that I wanted to communicate. And it was really the core and the heart of the film for me. I think what I did want to include most from my story was, the grief and the guilt and more of the emotional aspects of it that, I struggle with afterwards, or the struggle to, move forward and learn to live with that grief was on an emotional level something that I wanted to include in the film from my own story. And I didn't try to include subtly, I don't remember how much is actually stated in the film, the biographical details of what happened during the passing, the fact that it did happen when he was overseas, visiting me while I was studying overseas, the parents not being there, happening in the hospital very unexpectedly. So there's definitely a lot of the biography included in there. But yeah.
And I just want to know, obviously you said earlier you were very close with your brother. What was it like trying to find someone to play the brother in the film? Was that a difficult process? Because it almost, I don't want to say you were trying to replace your brother, because you can never do that, but trying to find someone who could have that same connection with you, at least on the screen, that you did with him when he was still with us.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's a really great question. It was very difficult. On an emotional level, as you said, and also practically, really, because I had considered and I had auditioned several other women actually to play Chloe before I decided to cast myself, and that was a long decision-making process. I auditioned myself. I sent in my own self-tape to my producers and my teachers, and I was like, hey, I don't want to make this all on my own. But I got feedback from them, and we felt that it ultimately did have the most strength and authenticity. And having directed and acted in my own works before, I was aware of the work that would entail, and having to put myself in that vulnerable place, I was hesitant, but I eventually did decide to cast myself. So then I had to find someone who was English speaking, who looked like me, who's the right age, who fit all these boxes for Daniel, who is played by the character Carter. So it was very difficult, and I auditioned a lot of people, and I ended up casting one of my classmates, actually, who was in the year below me, who had no prior acting experience, but he was just gung-ho and went for it, and I really appreciated that. And emotionally as well, something I hadn't expected during filming was I did oddly grow very attached to him and felt very affectionate towards him during the process. We hadn't known each other super well. We hung out a few times before filming to try to get to know each other, establish that relationship that we would be portraying on screen. But yeah, as you said, you can't replace him, but it was almost like having a small part of having a sibling back during the filming process, because we were pretending, you have a hard time separating fiction from reality. So, especially during the hospital scene, there were, moments where I would be like, I would just want to, tussle his hair or something like that. So then when the film ended, and moving on from that kind of again was difficult. So there were a lot of aspects. Yeah, there were a lot of layers to that, and it was difficult.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Probably something you almost didn't even think of all the different ways that it could impact you until you started going through that process.
Yeah, and I will say also the actor was, so concerned with doing my brother and the story justice, and I really appreciated that, and that was very sweet of him as well.
Excellent. Yes. Now, what other challenges did you face with this production? I know you've obviously worked on some other short films in the past, but what challenges did you face with this one, and how did some of that past experience also help you prepare for this production?
Oh my goodness. We had a lot of challenges for this film. The major one being that we did this whole film with actual live FaceTiming.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had obviously been heavily encouraged to pre-record all of card
Right.
scenes and for me to react back to them, just for many reasons, like worrying about audio lag, and just all the things that can go wrong with that if you're live FaceTiming. But I really fought for that because as an actor, I feel I wanted to have that the natural, back and forth, and for us to react to each other. And I thought that would bring the most authenticity to the performance. So we did it, yeah. And this also meant, because we couldn't be in the same room, that we shot in 2 locations at the same time. And that was actually my first time working with a crew. And so we had 2 crews, 2 units in 2 different locations. And that other location was an hour and a half away
Oh, wow.
Paris. Because originally we showed Carter in the garden that he's at in the afterlife. And we ended up not including that in the film. But so that garden was Giverny. And so we needed a place that was near there. So literally the only way that the 2 crews were communicating was all through this computer screen.
Oh, geez.
Through, texting and the FaceTime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. So that was obviously the major challenge, but we did it. And location finding was also a bit difficult. We ended up shooting in my apartment for Chloe's scene. And yeah, we found Airbnbs and stuff outside Giverny to be the afterlife. And I'm really proud of us that we finally found an actual library in Paris that to film the opening scene at. But
yeah,
trying to find locations in Paris as a student with 0 budget is tricky.
I'm sure.
And then obviously just the emotional aspect of directing and acting, particularly for this film. But the previous experience, in terms of how my previous experience helped me, definitely was great that I had experience directing and acting before, so that it wasn't my first time, and I was kind of aware of how that worked. Though I am learning that while I do love directing others, I am not a fan of directing myself. But it was just overall a very different production than any I had done before. Just because of the fact that it was in Paris, not LA, the fact that it was 2 crews and 2 locations, that it was all with screens and devices. I hadn't really done that in a film before. And then, also working kind of in a student environment with fellow students instead of with a group of industry professionals and adults.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it seemed like you had a lot on your plate, but you managed to pull it off. That's for sure.
Yeah, we did.
Now, I have a couple of questions not specifically related to the film, but before I move on to those, is there anything else you want to touch on about the new short film?
Yeah, I would just want to say that I really am so grateful for all the crew and all the cast I had on this project. My actors were amazing, and I was just very grateful for them. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, because Eva Lombi, who plays my best friend in the film, was such perfect casting. She brought such a lightness to the character and to set, and she just was such a great friend, like on screen and off screen. And as I said, Kelso had no previous, who plays Carter, had no previous acting experience, but he was cast last minute as well, very last minute, and he just really went for it and did amazing and knocked it out of the ballpark. So I'm very thankful to have had them with me during that process.
Wonderful. Now, this might be the hardest question I ask, but if you could pick your top 3 films of all time, what would they be?
That is definitely the hardest question that you have asked. Oh my goodness. I'm more of like a top 10 list kind of. There's so many good options. I constrained myself. If I had to, I would choose Return of the King, which choosing between the 3 Lord of the Rings in itself was difficult. But that one, the first time I watched it, I cried so hard. So it has a particularly special place in my heart. The Quiet Girl, which is an Irish film that I thought was so beautifully shot. The visual style was just gorgeous. And I was so thankful to see it on a class trip that we did in college to Ireland, and we got to see it in the theaters there. And that was awesome. Nice. And You've Got Mail. I'm a sucker for rom-coms. And particularly anything doing with bookshops. So, yeah, those would be the top three.
Excellent choices.
There's so many good ones.
Now, if you could invite any 3 movie characters to your next dinner party, who would they be and why?
All right, this one I'm gonna splurge a little. I just have to honorable mentions.
Okay.
I just have to say
We'll allow it.
would be Shuri from Black Panther, because she's so badass and beautiful, and in this last one she does also experience sibling grief, so I found that very relatable. The Artful Dodger, Thomas Brody Sangster's character, love him, and Loki, because he I think he's just such a wonderfully complex character. He brought so much humanity to the villain, and besides just having a massive crush on Tom Hiddleston, I just wanted to give him a hug after this last season of Loki, because it was
100%
a lot. So my top 3 choices, who I would invite to a dinner party, though, would be Anne of Green Gables. I grew up reading those books, and I loved her. I felt that she was a kindred spirit, which is something she likes to say herself, and she's so imaginative and quirky. She would carry the conversation, and she would make it such a good time. So definitely her. Newt Scamander, he's long been a crush of mine. Such a kind, empathetic, again, quirky soul. You can see similarity in characters here, but I love him. And then I would say, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Okay. Good selection there. I'd almost like to see Newt and Loki together with what kind of magic they would cook up for dinner.
Yeah, that's boy.
Now, do you have any books you could recommend that you've read recently? They could be fiction or nonfiction, and don't have to have anything related to movies, if you like.
I am a huge reader, so I love this question. I'm always so happy to recommend books, and this is perfect because I actually just finished reading a book called House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And a 5 out of 5. I'm obsessed with it. I've been like raving about it to everybody I know and being like, you have to read this book. It's so quirky and just cute and lighthearted, but it does also have like good, deeper messages about bureaucracy and internal prejudices. And to kind of relate it to movies, I feel that it's like a Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but cozier, less creepy, and mixed with Good Omens, which is a show that I really love. Yeah. But in terms of the fact that in Good Omens and in this book, there's a child who is like the Antichrist, and also in terms of the queer romance that exists between the two protagonists. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of those, and it made me laugh so hard, like so often throughout the book. I love his writing style. So, yeah, House in the Cerulean Sea is what I would recommend.
Excellent. We'll make sure to put a link to where folks can check that out if they're interested. And last thing before we wrap up here, I know the film is showing at ComicCon at the end of July, which is awesome, by the way. But do you have any other projects lined up that you might be working on next? And also, where can people follow you on social media to keep tabs on those projects?
Yeah, so people can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Dana Koops, DANAKOOPS, looks like Koops. I do not have any personal projects coming up. I've really been focusing on my acting lately, and also script supervising is a job that I've been newer at. So I'm focusing on all my attention there for now, but I do have several projects that I've written on the back burner that I would love to come back to sometime in the future, maybe.
Excellent. Anything that you're script supervising that you can tell us about, or is that all hush-hush?
It is hush-hush, unfortunately. I could say the genre. I have a vertical production coming up, so that's fun.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to keep an eye out for your name and some credits coming up soon. Well, Dana, thank you so much for the time and sharing your story and all the thoughts on the film. I really appreciated you taking the time, and look forward to seeing what we can expect from you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a delight.
Thank you again to my guest today, Dana Koops. Her newest short film, La Bibliothèque, is premiering at ComicCon on July 28th. So if you're in San Diego, be sure to check out her work at 1 p.m. Pacific Time on Sunday. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eacherberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eacherberg. Please come back for new episodes throughout the month of August, where I will be speaking with filmmakers featured at this year's 20th annual Holly Shorts Film Festival. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.